Hello, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very special version of our Tech Tuesdays. It's my pleasure this week to introduce our panelists and also our topic. So, in this Tech Tuesday, we're going to go ahead and take a look at how industry leaders are driving sustainability in the real world, right? And what initiatives they're using, and wanted to give our audience a few different perspectives. So, as I said, we've got some esteemed guest panelists with us, and I'd like to start off first with Kristen Bidwell. Kristen is the president and CEO of AVCT Consulting, and followed next by Joyce Kwan, who is with Sony Sustainability Office. And then last but not least, Karim Springer, our lead sales support engineer on our North American sales support engineering team. Kristen, maybe I'll let you go ahead and do a deeper dive, and then everyone else can share a little bit more about themselves, especially from a sustainability perspective, where you guys are involved and so on, and then we'll just jump in with some conversation. So why don't you go ahead, Kristen?
Sure. Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it. The ABCT is a consulting firm. We're based out of Boston. We recently expanded into New York City, but we work on global projects. We just finished projects in 16 different countries as of to date. So really excited, and we definitely implement sustainability a lot into our designs. We look at product selection. We look at local integrators. There's like a lot of different metrics that we look at for implementing into our design services, and we also offer day two remote management services uh, to our clients as well to help them track their sustainability initiatives and ROI. So heavily involved, also on the Avixa Sustainability Council as a co-chair with my partner in crime, Althea Ricketts, and been on the developing best practices for the industry over the past few years in sustainability. So definitely heavily engaged.
Excellent, thanks, Kristen. Joyce, why don't you tell us about yourself and what you do for Sony?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. Really excited to have these discussion today. So I manage the environmental stewardship program for Sony Electronics in North America. And I've always been very passionate about sustainability and spent the past decade working in sustainability and environmental policy within the tech industry, really focus on turning global environmental and social responsibility commitments into more measurable actions. And in my current role at Sony, I oversee the compliance with extended producer responsibility regulations across North America, and then also building systems for circularity and sustainability initiatives.
Excellent, awesome, thank you. So happy to have you join us. I know it's a little bit early. You're out on the West Coast, so thanks for joining us today. And Karim, why don't you finish us up?
Oh, definitely. I'll keep it short and sweet. Well, I'm the lead sales support engineer, focused here in the Northeast. I support a great team of sales support engineers throughout the country. I like to always say I wear two hats. I focus more on the pre-sale side, helping out with demonstrations and presentations, but on the post-sale side, I help out customers like Kristen and system integrators and end users just getting their systems back up and running.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Again, I think three very different perspectives that will really add a great deal of value to the conversation today. So just to jump right in, and I've got a couple of sort of icebreakers, if you will, that will help us to set the stage, and then maybe we can take a deeper dive in some of those that just naturally lead into wanting us to attack at a deeper level. In terms of sustainability, right? And in some ways, it's very much become a buzzword, especially in the AV industry. I think that Sony as a manufacturer is very much focused on sustainability from the hardware side. But maybe Kristen, you can comment a bit more about a more holistic, more comprehensive look at sustainability and how you do that as a consultant working both with your the architects that you engage with as well as your on your client's behalf, how you help them develop a sustainability strategy.
Sure. It starts with a very early conversation in the design process. So, when we are even working on a proposal before the project, before we are awarded the project, we talk to the architect about sustainability initiatives for that client. And a lot of times, actually, architects don't even realize that AV is doing anything in sustainability. And so but architects are so involved in sustainability that they love it. And they're just like, oh, well, what can you do? What can we put in the proposal? What can be the requirements here? And so we work closely with them depending on what state or country we're in, on different legislation on what we can actually leverage for our designs. Because it's one thing to say, hey, the integrator has to be local, but there's definitely laws in place in different areas of the U.S. and different countries that we can actually leverage to implement those sustainability initiatives. So it definitely starts day one with the proposals, and then in schematic design we start talking to the clients about what we can do for them to help them become more sustainable, and really understanding what their goals are and how we can play a part in that. Sometimes it's a large part, sometimes not so much, just depending on the use, but and what they need. But that goes through the design process. We look at products that are more sustainable. We look at materials that are being used. We look at um, shipping. We look for local distributors. We look for local integrators, kind of throughout the whole chain. So
Mhm.
our attempt to be more sustainable for the client definitely touches the integrator and the manufacturer, and we kind of start that chain of events. And then in day two services, we can kind of see the fruits of that. So it's really cool that we're at a
Yeah.
stage now in the industry where we can do that, and everybody's kind of playing ball and moving forward in the right direction. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned playing ball, right? And just I think from your seat, I'm thinking of someone who's juggling, right? Many balls, right? Because again, you've touched on so many areas there, and I think it's kind of a nice lead into Joyce, where Joyce, I think you sit in a unique position where yes, you're driving the sustainability initiatives for a major manufacturer like Sony, but you're also looking after, on a corporate level, sustainability initiatives that like dovetail right into many of the areas that Kristen mentioned, and you could very well be a client of Kristen's, right? So if you could maybe expand upon that a little bit, like, again from two perspectives: manufacturer and a corporate entity.
Sure. So we're really seeing that from manufacturer side, very focused on sustainability. For example, we have the Road to Zero, and which we launched in 2010. It's a long-term commitment to eliminate our company's environmental footprint by 2050. And overall, we're really seeing our customers' demand for sustainability, and it's not just a nice to have, but something that from regulations and also customer preferences as well. We're seeing that a lot through our
Mhm.
value chain as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're definitely getting into the Sony corporate strategy of Road to Zero and how that, again, I think really sits on both sides of the fence, right? Both is reflected in the products that we have, and then again, just as a corporate entity, what are we being very very aware of and sensitive to and proactive in terms of adoptions and so on. And Karim, from the engineer's perspective, right? I think again, Kristen really touched on a lot there. But one thing that I wanted to key in on was, her consideration for local systems integrators, right? And I think that's something that really is not only in the install, right, in the initial commissioning and so on. You want to make sure that you've got obviously a competent integrator, but again, someone that's not flying people all over the country to
Mhm.
to commission and build. I think that sparks something in my mind that I'd like you maybe to touch upon, which is day two, right? So after sales support with respect to a systems integrator and their need to reduce the number of truck rolls, right?
Mhm.
To try to go out and troubleshoot and manage a situation and looking to maybe again tools beyond just the hardware that also have an impact on the sustainability factor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, and I'm going to give a couple of examples with that. But first, I see a lot of end users wanting remote management only because it really would minimize the amount of AV techs running out to a location or amount of trucks being deployed to a specific location just for setup. So having a device like a remote management tool where they could do management and control, device shut-offs and scheduling is a huge benefit. So yeah, so utilizing cloud-based applications like remote management, our device management platform in particular, is a huge benefit to the sustainability initiative for end users.
Yeah. I think I'll stick with you and just ask about, beyond the monitoring and the remote management.
Mhm.
What other kinds of technology advancements are you seeing in the way of sustainability and long term ROI and smaller carbon footprint and so on?
Yeah, and I'm gonna use our new P series as an example here. Our P series is designed for to do less power consumption, if you will. So when you're looking at total cost of ownership, if you're doing a large rollout, that really matters. Also, even our direct view LED wall, CLED S series, is a new product as well that really have a lower power consumption for end users. So when we're looking at that total cost of ownership, those products, having products that reduce power consumption, is a huge benefit.
Yeah, yeah. Kristen, what are you seeing in the broader AV community in terms of those those types of developments with respect to technology, and how are other manufacturers approaching this, and even industry organizations?
Sure, and I think power consumption is a big one, and I'll kind of stick with that theme. So, I'm gonna intentionally not say AI because I feel like every webinar is about AI or it goes down that hole. So I'll take a different route on this answer. Um, that could take the whole hour. Um, I've recently seen a few manufacturers, a few video wall manufacturers, creating something very cool, and I haven't seen it installed yet. So I'm not going to be the first one to design it, but or use the products. But um, there are video wall panels that can act as solar panels, and
Mm.
actually, instead of being the huge energy consumer, can be the energy generator. And so what these panels are doing are there's like multiple types of panels. So these um, some are it's very cool. So um, they actually match the facade of a building. And so behind me, say this was like a video wall or whatever. When it was off, it would actually just look like the painted wall behind me instead of a black screen.
Huh.
I actually heard about it first from architects, and they were like, "Oh, check this out!" I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this?" Because it's really nice because we have a lot of, we're doing a lot of outdoor LED installs now, and they're wanting to put these huge video walls up, which would look amazing. But in places that maybe the city doesn't really want to look like Las Vegas, right? Or Times
Mhm.
Square. And it's just like, oh, these really gorgeous old buildings with these beautiful facades, and we're going to put a huge video wall on it. And it's cool in some ways, and it makes me cringe in some ways because we're affecting the architecture. And now the video wall panels are actually part of the facade material. So wood, stone, you name it. Like there's
Man,
numerous panels that are blending in. So when it's off, it just looks like the building. But they're
amazing.
also acting as solar panels, and they're actually. And then there's some technologies that where they're trying to reduce CO2 and actually act as a clean air agent. And so we're seeing this big shift where, we've worked on so many LEED certified buildings, and then we put in this massive video wall that sucks up so much energy, and it's just like, yeah, that's so against the grain from what everyone else on the project was working towards. And now they're coming out with products that can actually help. So it's a cool shift. I'm really excited. I know of multiple manufacturers have been reaching out to a lot of people like, "Are you doing this?" That are starting to do this. I think a lot of it's in beta, um, but it's really really cool to see from a sustainability perspective.
That's
Exciting.
really amazing. That's really amazing, and it really, I think, takes the whole sustainability conversation and the initiative, beyond, well, how much can we cut to get to a number, right? To get a certification, and here we're actually not only we combining, cutting, but we're also getting, we're adding,
We're
right,
improving it, right?
in the way of power, and that's amazing. I think of a hybrid vehicle, right? So the vehicle itself is utilizing less fossil fuel, but when you step on the brakes, you're also generating power, right? So kind of those two things are happening at the same time. And Joyce, maybe we'll go over to you and talk a little bit more about technology and technology advancements that that you're seeing, and how those things are making a difference with respect to sustainability. And again, I love the fact that when we talk about things like this, we're not just checking boxes and so-called greenwashing, but we're having a real impact.
Yeah, so beyond we do have a lot of sustainable products, but beyond our own R&D, we're also looking into a broader innovation approach. We do have the Sony Innovation Fund for the environment, and that fund helps to invest in early stage startups that addresses more like the climate change, um, resource efficiency, and biodiversity. So even though perhaps maybe we don't immediately enter these technologies in our products, we're also learning where the innovation and sustainability is heading, and then also um, maybe these solutions can also accelerate and support sustainability within the industry itself.
Awesome. Yeah, those are definitely trends that I think are in the forefront and will continue to be so as we move forward. I wanted to get into maybe a little bit deeper dive. This has been really some good table setting that we've done here, and I'm going to challenge each of you to go a little bit deeper. Before I do, though, I want to remind our attendees and our audience that they should be submitting their questions in the chat panel, so that we can address those as they come up. And maybe I'll kick things off with the deeper dive and go right over to Karim. Right. So let's get all tech here and just say, like, what do you think is going to be the the biggest impact on power consumption in AV? Right. What are the things affecting that, and what can make the biggest difference?
Oh, wow. So in the AV workflow, there's tons of devices in between that could really draw on a system's power. However, if I was to think of a few, I'll definitely think of like AV amplifiers, third-party devices like PTZ cameras, but most importantly, LED and LCD walls single-panel displays tend to be a huge power draw. That's why it's
Mhm.
really important to have a display that's able to reduce those power consumptions.
Yeah, and I think it's a two-way street there as well, right?
Mhm.
Because it's not just about the consumption of the power by the individual device, whether it's like you say, an LED video wall, like our Crystal LED, or our Pro Bravia flat panel displays.
Mhm.
But then there's the other factors that come into play. So, okay, the display is generating X amount of heat. Now you need to make sure that you've got adequate cooling, and those
Mhm.
things all add up in terms of the overall sustainability score and the footprint, right? So reducing the footprint in terms of power consumption on the flat panel display um, doesn't only stop there, but again, it helps to reduce your cooling requirements in terms of the building. And when you've got a large building, a campus, and so on, that all tends to add up pretty quickly. So
And,
good
I, I
point.
just, I just want to quickly add as well. When we're looking at devices on the AV workflow, it's important to also understand system on chip capabilities. It eliminates the amount of devices having to be connected to, where you could just solely just focus on the display itself. Again, minimizing the amount of devices on that network that's going to draw power.
Good point. Good point. Kristen, let's change things up a bit, right? I know that anybody who follows you on LinkedIn, you're very active in terms of all of our industry events. As you mentioned in the intro, you're on Avixa's sustainability panel, and with respect to events themselves, I think there's an interesting thing here as we're talking. We've only spoken so far, I think, from a perspective of, yeah, I'm servicing my clients, we're building facilities, and so on, and that certainly is a large part, I think, of the conversation around that. But as industry members, shouldn't we be eating our own cooking, so to say, right? And when we look at industry events, shows, exhibitions, um, how, how do you think things like that can be made more sustainable?
Sure, and it's it's a tough question because trade shows, you think about Infocom or ISE, those are monstrous trade shows, right? There's so many people coming. There's so many people flying in from all over the world. Uh, I mean, I'm I've talked to Kerma about this recently. Manufacturers have it tough for these trade shows. You guys work really hard, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of shipments. There's a lot of building. There's how are you building your booth? How big is the booth? Like what are you building the booth with? And so there's so many things that go into like trade show. I think there's a couple of things, or there's a lot of things that shows could do, and are starting to do, which is really great. That can not only benefit the environment but also enhance the show's brand image, that resonates with
Yeah.
eco-friendly participants. So it's kind of a win-win when sustainability initiatives are implemented into these shows. I think looking at how are you constructing your booth, how are you shipping products, are you using local offices to staff Are you flying a lot of people from the states to go to ISC, or do you have local European partner people from? And I'm sure you do because you're Sony. But how are companies implementing their local staff to work at those shows versus Vegas, where you probably wouldn't fly people from overseas to work at Vegas show, right? So, looking at the logistics there, and then how are you building your booths? Are you using recyclable materials? Are you using a lot of plastics for shipping? We look at even the carpet. Like I saw, I think at ISC they're starting to pull the carpet
Hmm.
just so they don't use that, which is really rough on the knees, right? So there's a balance there, but also it's more sustainable to just use the floor and not waste carpet. Um, there's you know, how are we doing the signage? This is a big thing that I always think about when I walk into the trade shows is why is there so much paper that is just going to get thrown out in 3 days? Why are we not using e-paper, installed e-paper displays or the displays like, you know, why can't we use the displays that are being shipped to the site anyways, especially for AV, to just use that for um, wayfinding instead of
Yeah.
printing out all of this paper and then just throwing it away. So there's a lot of different things, even down to participants. So people bring their own water bottles versus using plastic bottles and throwing those away. You think about all the food waste. Are they using recyclable materials for the foods in the restaurants? I mean, you can look at really every piece of the show and see what can I do to make this more sustainable? Are the
Hmm.
recycling bins around? Are people just throwing their trash everywhere? Like how is that being handled? So there's a lot that can be fixed or at least help. Something that I also like about Infocom is I don't know if you guys take much time to walk around the show floor. I know you guys, Sony's extremely busy in the booth.
Friday afternoon,
A
usually.
Friday afternoon, right? When you're dead and you just want to go back to your room, right? But like I think about like Infocom does the puppies in Orlando, right? They work with a local nonprofit to adopt puppies, and like that can be seen as a very that's a social cause, right? You're engaging a local nonprofit to help collaborate
Mhm.
with them. And that's just a nice break. I just love going to play with the puppies, so that's probably my favorite part of the show. But like I loved seeing that. Like, okay, how do we engage the local community more? How do we help them with our show, and not just make it about tech, but also social responsibility? So there's so many different aspects of a show, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. So something that can be massively time consuming and expensive and not great for sustainability, we can at least find ways to make it better for the community.
Um,
Yeah.
I'd, I'd like to add to Kristen's comment. I think a lot of the time people think, they're not in a specific sustainability role, then they can't really make an impact. But the reality is, sustainability is everyone's job. And I feel that we could always take the opportunity to educate other employees on what they can do day to day. It's a like giving empowering them to make an impact, and educating them on how to protect the environment, or doing like cleanups, kind of like employee engagement, and then with them physically going out to learning and seeing the importance of protecting our planet. They could take that into their day-to-day jobs. Like somebody in marketing can might be thinking, oh, how can I share more sustainability messaging? Or somebody in R&D or engineering, oh, how can I reduce the energy consumption in our products? So it's everyone's responsibility.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. I think as both Kristen and Joyce have said, it's something that really needs to be a whole community approach, right? It's not one manufacturer's job. It's not one person's job. It's not one company's job. And especially, I think, especially in AV, right? We should be viewed as leaders in this because I think we are. And I'm really happy to, hear about initiatives like Avixa and Save, and the things that we are doing in this industry to really reflect genuine concern and meaningful steps to really make an impact, right? Um, Joyce, I wanted to stick with you for a minute and um, talk a bit more about some of the initiatives that are now ongoing, at Sony Electronics, and Sony Corporation. And maybe it'll be a two-part question, right? So obviously you've mentioned Road to Zero, and I think our audience would like to hear a little bit more about that and what that really means, and then talk maybe in some specifics around what our recycling and sustainability goals are especially in the electronics area, and maybe you could even define for us what EPR means. It's an acronym that's thrown around and maybe starting to become a buzzword. So I'll toss it to you.
Sure. So, as mentioned, we have our Road to Zero environmental plan, and that is our goal is to eliminate our environmental footprint by 2050. It's very ambitious, but it's simple. So, across our entire product life cycle from the raw materials, looking at like manufacturing to logistics, product use and recycling, we're trying to progressively reduce our environmental impact until it reaches net zero. And then we also um, with these targets every 5 years, we look at social trends and then also our current trends as well, and then try to set medium term environmental targets, which is our green management 2030 that is coming up. And then in terms of EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, that has been very complex and fast moving area right now. And in the US, we have a patchwork of different models. So in California, there's the advanced recycling fee system, there's like target based programs and convenience standards on recycling the electronics by each state. So, and a big part of my role is to navigate this complexity and then ensuring that we are compliant across all of them. So, in the US alone, we are going beyond compliance, and under this Road to Zero strategy, one of our environmental focus areas is the responsible use of resources. So through like collection sites, mailback, we have like a free mailback
Hmm.
program, regulatory compliance channels. We are approximately recovering 60 million pounds of electronics annually. And then we also require that our recycling partners have the third party certification, like R2, Free, and E Stewards. So that ensures that all the recycling is ethical, responsible, and the downstream management of this e waste is is recycled well, and we
Yeah.
take accountability of that.
And we're reminded of it every day here in Paramus, right, Greg Karim? We've got a big e-waste bin
Yes.
right outside our service department, and everyone is encouraged. And I think we also have like there are certain times throughout the year where the awareness is even heightened, and we're encouraged to bring stuff in. So um, thank you, Joyce. I appreciate the deep dive into the road to zero. You know, Karim, let's stay on that a little bit in terms of recycling and products. The aspects of our products that address address sustainability. And I know it's more than just power consumption. Can you share a little bit about what we're doing in Pro Bravia and the P series?
Yeah, I've been with Sony about 8 years now. Unfortunately, I got to give you a little background history here. And I've seen the progression of ProBravius just evolve in terms of sustainability. Looking at the P series, where now you have an eco dashboard that's able to tell you power consumption, and you have remote management capabilities, and you have 47% you know, uh, cabinets designed with surplus plastic, not virgin plastic, which really reduces our carbon footprint. We have come a long way in terms of P series and our displays in general.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. Even the thing that impressed me, and by the way, Karim's been here 8 years. I've been here just slightly longer, but
Slightly. It's been a lifetime.
even the thought in terms of the reduction of ink on the cartons,
Yes.
to even to that point. And again, when we look at larger just larger industry trends, we look at things that Sony's involved with, in terms of application, right? And virtual production, where talk about sustainability. Years ago, you'd have to fly tons of equipment and
Hmm.
tons of people to sometimes exotic locations just to get a shot for a movie. And now with virtual production, we can eliminate a lot of that. And Sony obviously is a leader both at both ends of the chain, where we're a premier manufacturer of cinematic cameras, as well as a leader in video walls, especially with our Capri and Verona walls, which are specifically designed for virtual production. When you think about even that and the impact that that's making, it's pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud to be part of a company that is part of that. Um,
John, may I add to that a little
yeah,
bit more? Just going back to our device management platform, and the reason why I talk about it so much because it's really important in terms of sustainability. One of the functions under our device management platform is zero touch provisioning. Just to touch on your point, where now with that zero touch provisioning process, where you can make your configuration pair to the platform while it's still in the warehouse and still in the box, it's huge because now you're sending less text to a site to do an install.
yeah, absolutely. Going back to those truck rolls again,
Yeah.
right? So, and by the way, right, we're this presentation is taking place in April of 2026. I don't think anyone needs to hear about the price of fuel at this point, right? So, not only are we doing good things for the earth and the environment, but for our systems integrators, bottom line, right? Which I think every day we go on, the truck roll becomes more and more expensive.
Hmm.
So I think that's a really good point as well. Maybe we want to circle back with Kristen and ask, on a broader, we've spoken quite a bit here about Sony, right? But maybe you can bring us to a broader perspective in terms of our premier AV organization, Avixa, and what Avix is trying to do, and how the board, the sustainability team, and so on. I know you sit on the sustainability team. You also sit on the actual Avixa board. So maybe you can give us that perspective, both from the corporate Avixa point of view, and then a little bit more granular in terms of the sustainability group in particular?
Sure. Yeah, with the board, sustainability is always coming up, making sure that we are taking the correct steps for the industry in our sustainability approach. What are we doing at our trade shows, but also how can Avixa support consultants, integrators, and manufacturers in those efforts, uh, and how can everything tie in together? Because it's obviously an extremely important topic on a global scale. And as you know, Avixa is global, and we have a lot of different trade shows around the world, and sustainability is extremely important to a lot of people. So um, it's really nice to see the board support for sustainability, and that they recognize and recognize that it is something that needs to we need to move forward in the industry as we grow as an industry. Um, on the Sustainability Best Practices Committee, we recently, at ISC this year, we released best practices for consultants, integrators, and manufacturers that we worked on for the past few years. So we're pretty excited to see those final documents come to pass, and those are available on the Avixa um, Sustainability Committee website, and I'm sure we can provide that link to everyone. But it's really nice to see the push forward and to see everyone kind of getting on board. And it took a while. There were definitely uh, leaders in our industry the past couple decades really trying to push sustainability initiatives. It seemed to kind of always fall short or always get, oh, we'll deal with that later, or this was great, it's a great document, but no one got to see it, and there was no real movement. The needle didn't move, even though there were really amazing contributors to sustainability. So it's not new to the industry, but it's finally caught on. And I think part of that is maybe more people that are passionate about it. Obviously, sustainability is talked about on a global scale in a lot of different industries. So it's finally coming to pass. Maybe we're seeing it because we have hotter summers now. We really need to pay attention to it. But also, legislation has helped a lot. So, and especially in the EU, where they have pretty much demanded that any global manufacturer that wants to do work, or integrators that want to do work in the EU, need to follow certain guidelines and need to prove it's not just greenwashing, but actually prove that they do have a sustainability plan in place and what they're doing to be able to get into these larger scale projects. So that really helped push the industry forward. We're seeing, we're Boston based, um, and a lot of my state contract work and a lot of my higher education work requires sustainability in my specifications and initiatives for um, not only product selection but also integrators. And some integrators don't meet the cut because they don't have a sustainability plan in place. So and they're somewhat shocked by this sometimes, and it's just like, well, this isn't new. Um, and it's really great to see Massachusetts really pushing that forward. California is the same way. New York is the same way. Oregon, um, Washington State, they have laws in place that are really pushing in the United States, which is great. And I'm sure there's other states that are doing it too. Those are just the big ones off the top of my head. But it's really nice to see legislation pushing that. And I'm on a few committees with the AIA, with the Architecture Institute of, or American
Mhm.
Institute of Architecture. And I work on government committees with the New York City-based AIA committee and in Boston, and we've actually been able to push legislation forward on the architecture side for greener builds, and that just helps the AV industry more. So it's really nice to be a part of two different arms, the architecture and the design side, and pushing sustainability forward um, for our projects. But yeah, it's really great to see that this is actually moving forward, and it's really nice to see. I think we needed manufacturers to jump on board. I think that was the big win, and I know Sony's always been on the forefront of that, which has been really nice to work with you and partner with you in our designs, because we need the products to be able to meet our sustainability requirements for the projects. So just really, really nice to see in 2026 that the industry is moving this way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it's you covered a lot of ground there. Excuse me, you covered a lot of ground there, but interesting to see that there are requirements for systems integrators to have a sustainability plan, right? It's like I think there's parallel between, when you're looking at that part of the supply chain, right? I think they've all gotten to the point where, whether it's a lesson learned the hard way or again through legislation, they all have cyber plans now, and no one wants to deal with a company that doesn't have some very solid cyber guidelines in place, right, before they'll be allowed really into any enterprise or college campus at this point, in the game. And I think I can see parallels between that and sustainability. Um, you know, Joyce, Kristen mentioned about how she's happy to see that manufacturers are on board, right, and coming on board, as it makes her job easier in terms of being able to provide solutions and a path forward for her clients. Maybe you can speak a little bit more about, how did our goals, sustainability goals as a company, really drive the selection of materials, or influenced an engineering practice at Sony.
Sure. So, as Krista mentioned, we've seen definitely seeing a lot of different policies coming into play, and we have the even though the right to repair law today, it's mostly focused on consumer electronics. We're seeing a more broader shift towards repairability, and then also longer product life cycles across our industry. So, in the engineering side, ensuring that our products are able to be easily repairable, not just for the independent uh, repair companies, but also for customers themselves, having the manuals available and documentations, and then also parts available. And then in terms of different environmental how our environmental goals are moving in our innovation in our products, we do have the Sorplast, which is our proprietary recycled plastics, and then it helps and enables like up to 99% recycled content, and then it also ensures that has the maintains the durability, and then also the flame resistance, which is comparable to virgin plastic. And this is a very big step in reducing the reliance on virgin plastics, and then lowering the CO2 emissions. We're seeing a lot of climate disclosures as well, so that is helpful. And then another example would be the deep black non-glare
Mhm.
technology, and then that helps to improve the visibility and reduce the reflections, and the display. Our displays can operate more effectively at a lower brightness level. So this means, lower power consumption, reduced heat, and longer panel life. So not only sustainability is driving engineering decision, it also delivers better performance. So overall, it's a win-win.
Agreed.
John,
Agreed.
I
Yeah. Go
want to
ahead,
add
Karim.
something real quick to that because it's something that we tend to always forget: reliability and quality. And for me, this really plays a factor because if you have a display that's going to last longer versus a display you have to swap out every couple of years because it's constantly dying, really does play a role in the sustainability initiative.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? And I think again, right, one thing one thing I hope has happened throughout the course of this panel conversation, right, is that not only have we shared with the audience what we're doing, what our respective companies doing, what our industry is doing in terms of sustainability, but a better understanding of what sustainability is,
Mhm.
right? We've talked about so many aspects here, truck rolls and so on, and again, it's like, well, if the product's reliable, it doesn't need a truck roll, right?
Mhm.
And talking about the products, again, the products and solutions themselves. Joyce mentioned some of the aspects of our Propravia displays. Well, I think also anyone who's stood in front of an LED wall in the past will really positively remark about how little heat is being thrown off of our crystal LED series, direct view LED products, right? Whether it's the CH, the BH, or now the new S series.
Mhm.
And the S series itself is probably about 30% less power consumption than other competitive technologies. So, it's the kind of thing where if you've got to be in front of that wall for town hall for the CEO, you don't want your client to be baking in front of the thing while they're making their presentation. So, really good conversation. Again, hopefully we've sparked some ideas out there, and again, maybe changed or added to some perspectives relative to really what sustainability is. So, in the way of wrap up, I'm not going to let anybody get off easy. By the way, one other thing that I was happy to hear, Joyce, is about it seems like the pendulum has really swung from you know in in the old days, right? Well, I remember, you fixed everything, right? Um, then there was, I think, a time where almost everything became disposable, right? And now I'm so happy to hear you mention that part of the sustainability considerations on the product side, on the manufacturing side, is ease of repair, right? When something does fail, is the information available? Are the service manuals made available? Are the products, the key areas of the product accessible? And again, I may be taking some liberty here, but I'd say that Karim, Kristen, and myself are no strangers to having a soldering iron in our hand, and I think all of us are kind of happy about that, right? We still like to get in there and tinker. So hearing you say that, I think is good, and again, just another part of the sustainability big picture and puzzle. So I've got some quick questions just to wrap up. Karim, I'll start with you. Right, Joyce said that sustainability is not one person's job, right? And we're all
Mhm.
involved. And you, as a sales support engineer for Sony, really are our frontline ambassadors out to the industry, right? So you're out there every day. You're dealing with integrators, end users, consultants, right? How often is sustainability coming up in your technical conversations? And as the Sony ambassador, what are you doing to encourage those conversations and share the information?
Well, that question comes up quite often, honestly, and it just came up recently, yesterday, where I was online with a customer and they want to know how they could put the display on a schedule, or they want to know if they could do auto power on and off as soon as the meeting is finished. And those conversations are constantly ongoing. They want to know what is always on the roadmap, how we're going to make our products more eco-friendly, if you will.
Thank you, Joyce. A challenging one for you. What do you see in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think, based on our discussions, the direction is pretty clear and we're already starting to see it sustainability is also a business, like a business imperative. We're seeing big trends where um, customers are demanding more energy efficient products, sometimes supported by AI as well. Increased use of recycled and circular materials. We've been having a lot of discussions with our Tokyo team on how we can increase circularity for all our business chain as well. And then longer lasting products with stronger repair and support models. Transparency is also key to support the customer ESG reporting. And then I think we're also seeing expectations going beyond just the products alone. Customers want companies to take more meaningful actions on social and environmental impact. So this month it's Earth Month, so we're focusing on the power of individuals making a difference,
Awesome.
educating topics like energy efficiency, water conservation, and reuse. And we're also partnering with For Ocean again this Earth Month, where
Mhm.
every Sony product registration, we're supporting removal of 1 pound of plastic and trash from the
Ooh,
oceans, rivers, and
fantastic.
lines. So trying to turn small actions into global impact. So overall, it's not just compliance anymore. It's um,
Yeah.
building trust, delivering value. And I think that it's really exciting now that sustainability, it's no longer just a constraint, but driving it helps to drive innovation and differentiation for companies. And then as of an industry as a whole, I feel it's we really need to collaborate, not just in companies themselves, but like policymakers and customers, as Kristen mentioned. And then
Yeah.
how can we move towards circularity together? So it's very exciting time for the industry. And, big things start from small beginnings. So
Outstanding. Outstanding. Yeah. I think that exciting is one word that really sums it up. And there's so much there. So appreciate it and continue on with the good work. And Kristen, we're going to come to you for the big finish. It always comes down to the money, right? Doesn't it?
Yep.
Tell us about your clients. Are they really willing to invest in sustainability? Their motivations, I think, are probably multifold. In terms of why they would want to, if there are costs involved, why they would want to do that. Tell us about your experiences there.
Sure. And I'll say an acronym that's not new, but you look at the three P's. You look at people, planet, and profit, and all three can align with a sustainability plan. So not only are you helping your staff or your external clients or the planet, but you can also profit from sustainability. If you have the right plan in place, it all works together, and it all works for the greater good, but also can increase a company's profit line or bottom line. I think that especially for-profit companies, they look at sustainability plans and they look, "Oh, how much is this going to cost me? I can't do it." Right? And Joyce mentioned, you can start small and make small changes to make an impact, but you can also make very strategic small changes that not only make an impact but can improve your ROI. So, um, and that's the goal. You don't want companies going under because they're being sustainable.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that doesn't help
Yeah.
anybody, right? But you look at Sony. You have a great plan in place, and that plan has helped you sell more products in Europe or in different places in the United States. where other or your competitors can't because they don't have those sustainability. So, I mean, that's a absolute win. For end users, we look at a lot of remote management software, day two software. Software can give end users data to show instant profitability. So we offer that as consultants, and we provide monthly or 6 months or 1 year reports to our end users to show them this is how your system's operating. Maybe if you make these tweaks, you can actually save 5% of your overall costs for the year. Let's try that in energy consumption, right? Not only choosing the right products, but also how are you using those right products? And through software, we see uh, drastic gains for end users because they have that data available. And they can adjust the systems, or oh, we need to turn this off at 6 p.m. or go into sleep mode instead of having video walls run all night, or it can,
Hmm.
something as large as that. But also, Karim talked about remote management services and not having to have a tech go on site every time something fails. So does that software self fix? Can that software um, have queries that reset products and then have that room ready to go in the morning instead of having to call integrator for service contract, or just come out and service because of their service contract and wait 3 days for them to come on? Now a room's down for 3 days. Now you've lost all that
Hmm.
money. And if you have a really robust remote management software, it can instantly reboot your system and take steps to fix it before you even show up the next day. So that's extremely valuable on a variety of levels, right? So um, I think the ROI is definitely the driver, but sustainability helps you gain more profitability for your company. So it's really a win-win if you do it right. If you have the strategy in place,
Yeah.
which is great. It's an easy sell if you understand the strategy, which is very
Yeah, yeah. No, those are good points. I think it's really you brought it up a couple of times. Really important to have that balance of compliance, if you will, but then ROI on that investment. And one other observation is that I can see in through our conversations and in listening to you, I can see where even consulting is changing, where you're not just setting long term technology strategies for your clients, but you said it again many times: strategy, 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 and it's the strategy around sustainability as well, and the blending of those two together makes you and your firm even more valuable, I think, to your clients. So I can see as the industry evolves, so does the role of the consultant. And clearly, Kristen, you guys are way out in front on that. And it's time to wrap. It's been a pleasure to have everyone on the panel today. Karim, Joyce, Kristen, thank you so much again for joining us. Would like to mention to our audience that they should please get on your calendar now. May 26th is when we're going to have our next Tech Tuesday, where we're going to be highlighting our fourth revision of software for the SRG camera series. As I think everyone who's had any experience with our cameras by now know that the camera itself is a platform upon which we continue to build by use of these firmware updates. So be sure to join us to get all that information on our next one. Again, I'm John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Display Solutions of America, thanking our panel members, thanking our audience and our attendees, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
cute.